I'm probably weird. Well, that's been a well-established fact for years, I'm sure, but anyway. Hello, and welcome to the Part-Time Gamers, the gaming podcast for people with full-time lives. I'm Sarahnex, clocking in with my good friend, That One Weirdo.
Just a friendly reminder to all of you, don't eat aluminum or you'll sheet metal.
Valid. That is valid. Yeah, I guess. That is
I'm back.
Yeah, so we
Like that
did
toe fungus you can't get rid of. I'm back.
Jeez. Could have gone with a little bit different analogy than that, but I guess that works as well. Yeah, we did have September
The
here
shirt
for.
I'm wearing is that color.
Yeah, oh jeez, that is what my dad would refer to as sinus infection green.
I love that. I love that. That is accurate.
Yeah. So we did have September here for a little bit, but internet sucks apparently. Yeah. Oh, just having some internet issues. So we're going to be two-man this tonight. But yeah. Yeah, it's been a little bit. We had
I'm excited to be back. We did have a brief one where it was the three of us again.
Yeah.
So it was like the band's back together, greatest hits, and then no amp.
Yeah, and then internet strikes back. But yeah, we've had a little bit of a break. We had our game night, and then we had Easter Sunday, which I decided to take off. So we are finally back. It's beginning of April, and we're back with a new subject. We're back with new games, and we're going to come back with the new icebreaker.
Nice of you to drop by.
Never heard that one before.
All right, so I was looking through the list that September gave me a while back, and this one kind of jumped out at me because I have an answer for it immediately. What is the best prank you've ever played on someone? I'll let you start because I think I came up with a second one that might be considered a prank, but I don't know. But I have one at least.
So I too, I love that you said that. When I read the question, because in the military, especially when you're bored, which in many cases can be a lot, you kind of come up with stupid stuff to do to pass the time and spend the taxpayer dollars.
Yeah.
So I too, I had an immediate reaction moment where I knew what it was, where it was like, oh, okay. So let's see, fast or rewind maybe 10-ish years ago, 11. I was stationed here in Utah, and vehicle operators, truck drivers, equipment operators, heavy gunners, we're all a different breed. It's all very, at least at that time, very kind of macho, but also we ridicule each other, but that's also part of the camaraderie. But we used to do, at least in this shop, and it was just a group of us. Like, we weren't going up to random people who were going to have an issue with it, but we used to go up out of the clear blue and good game people. I only did it to two people because I was close enough friends with them to do that. Everybody else is like, I'm not putting my hand there. No, I've seen what you eat for lunch. No, thank you. But we used to kind of go around the shop doing that to each other. And good friend of mine, he used to get everybody. Nobody would get him. So the prank was this. So one of our bosses was trying to get him, my good friend who never got. And what we did is we actually set him up. So my buddy, his last name was Buchanan, so we called him Buck.
Yeah.
And in Iraq, we used to, in most cases, shave our head because it was just easier.
Yeah.
So he used to do the trimming, and we used to say, it's a haircut for under $1. So Buck, he was like, I got an idea. So what he did is he stood at the dispatch window and called in our other boss who tries to play but never gets him. But what Buck did is he put he had a ceramic plate that was in the break room for whatever reason, and he put it down his pants on the backside where his booty was. And it was like, hey, there's Buck, go get him. So he runs in and he runs at full speed to give a good game to Buck. And all you hear is this plate go, and his hand, he's like, it was like, excellent, Smithers, excellent. And it actually really bruised his hand, the plate, because he was like at running speed to good game
Yeah.
him, which is kind of his doing. Like, I mean, we didn't want him to get hurt, but if he was already running, like, I can't stop that. Like, the bull's already in motion for the red cape. What are you gonna do?
Yeah.
So you just hear this ceramic thud, and we just all started laughing. And Buck obviously loved it. You know, we kind of put it together. So it was a great practical joke until about 10 minutes later, we all get called into the other guy's office. And it's like, well, and it's funny because it's one of those classic cases of, well, it's all fun and games till it happens to you. So
Yeah.
as soon as he got, the hunter became the hunted, he was like, okay, we can't good game here anymore because it's not fun and blah, blah, blah. And we were like, okay, that's fine. But of course, before I left the guy's office, I had to be the jerk and go, so how's your hand?
Ugh.
So yeah, that was one of the best ones because we didn't think he was gonna like run. Like we expected him to take advantage of the opportunity that we
Yeah.
set in
Yeah.
motion. But he ran. We're like,
Oh, something about to get broken? Either the plate or his hand.
the plate was fine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
his
man.
hand, he bruised it pretty good. And I think his ego was actually more bruised than his hand. So
Yeah. Oh.
what are you gonna do? But yeah,
Laugh
we
at
were
it?
pretty proud of that. Yeah, exactly. Oh, we could not stop laughing. I think he went home early too because he was just so embarrassed by the situation.
Nice.
And it was all fine, like until we did that, and then it was like, "Hey, we're not doing that anymore." Oh yeah, of course, we're gonna exile fun because
Yeah.
you had a bad experience, but we enjoyed it very much.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do?
Yeah. So there's I don't know if this is technically a prank as much as just kind of a funny moment. So I have an older sister. She's about 4.5 years older than me. And when we were still pretty young, and like I think I was in middle school, she was in high school, she got this really bad sunburn. So she was in the bathroom, like putting lotion on her legs or something like that. And me being the little punk kid that I went over there and just put my hand on her painful sunburn on her thigh. And she's like, "Stop that." She like just keeps on telling me to stop. Just like, okay. I just keep on doing it every so often. And eventually she got so angry that she went to slap my hand, and I moved it just in time for her to full force slap her own leg. And she was in quite a bit of pain from that. If just me putting my hand on her leg was painful, she just full force slapped her own leg. And afterwards she's like, "I couldn't even be angry. That was just so perfectly timed." Just like, I thought that was funny. Not so much a prank, but
Little Matrix move there.
Yeah.
Little Neo movement. Little bullet time.
yeah. So that wasn't so much a prank. I just think that was funny. Like even to
That is
this
pretty
day,
awesome.
even to this day, my sister's like, "Yeah, I can't even be angry with that. It's just so perfectly timed." Like the actual thing that I could consider a prank. I think I might have actually even mentioned it on the show. I don't know if it was on the show or if it was pre-show or something like that. But I think it was in third grade. I had one of these big, like, rubber spiders. And I get into the classroom. I'm the first person in there. There's no one else in here, and I'm the teacher. And I know that the girl that's sitting in front of me is this, like, the definition of a girly girl. Is like one who's just gonna flip out on a moment's notice with anything, weird. So I take out this spider that's literally about that big, and I just put it on her chair and then sit back down. Somehow, just by like sheer miracle, she's the next person to come into the classroom. She goes over to her chair, sees the spider, screams bloody murder, runs back out of the room. So I'm once again the only person in here. So of course, I just casually go over there, pick it back up, put it in my pocket, sit back down as if nothing happened. She comes in with the teacher, and it's like, "It was right there, it was right there." And the teacher's like, it's not there anymore. Like, why are you flipping out? And I'm just sitting there, just like, I didn't see anything.
What spider? What do
Yeah,
you mean?
exactly. I didn't see anything there. And as far as I know, as like the teacher didn't suspect me, or she probably didn't, just didn't say anything. But I wouldn't be surprised either way. But yeah, that's probably like the like most legitimate prank that worked out, just like spur of the moment. Oh,
Pretty awesome.
type thing. Other than that, I don't really do pranks that much. Oh, so I don't really
I used
have
to
any other
flat
good
tire
stories.
people a lot, like walk behind them and flat tire them. I used to do
Yeah.
that a lot. And then the one we used to do wasn't so much a prank, but it was more like, once again, it was my buddy Buck, and I've known the man for years. And when we would do convoys and stuff like that, or he would do convoys, they would actually, on one of the trucks, they'd have to cut the hole for the turret. And this was when convoys, when we first got to Operation Sandbox in like 03, 04. But the way the truck was designed, like you were in this turret with the driver and whoever was in the second seat. So we used to actually have vests that were like flak jackets that used to come down, but in front there was like this groin flap for like shrapnel or whatever.
Yeah.
So Buck, and especially if it was people that he knew, like people like us that were sitting in the turret, he would sit there and he would pull the flap up and wham it down and be like, "You up?
Ugh.
Did you?"
Yeah, sounds like the kind of person you want to go to war with.
I honestly, as far as that side of things goes, he was. But having said that, when it was time for the brass tacks, like it was like okay. But
Yeah.
up until that point, like if you were just like an onlooker and like saw him, you'd be like, "I'm gonna trust my life in that guy's hands." It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
why not? Could be worse. Could end up with me.
Oh,
I did
yeah,
all right.
maybe. Yeah. All right. So September's she's on the screen. I don't know if she's actually there. I have her camera turned off, but she may or may or not be able to join. I'm not sure. So if we hear her, cool. If we don't, we have her stand in for now. So for anyone watching this, that's why we have the third screen up, just in case. Anyway, also I don't know how to remove it from the screen. I don't
We
wanna
have
mess
the
with your
place
list.
setting in case she comes back for dessert.
Yeah. All right. But with that, let's go ahead and get into our water cooler talk. All right. So this is a like a breaking news type situation with Helldivers. So for anyone who doesn't know, I've been really getting into Helldivers 2 lately. So it's been kind of a phenomenal thing that's been going on lately, and specifically, actually, just today, so they have this what is referred to as a major order, which is this it's a community wide goal for everyone who's playing the game, and the one that was ended today was for completely eliminating one of the enemy types out of the game entirely. So we have officially gotten rid of the automatons. The mission was successful. We have wiped out the automatons for now. So there's still the Terminids, but I think that Helldivers 2 is doing the Arrowhead Studio is doing a really cool thing with these major orders. Because it really changes how you play the game. I think it's really cool that it's like they even have the options like, okay, so at least it looks like for probably at least the foreseeable future, there's not going to be any automatons that we need to worry about. So I think that's kind of cool. Although there's been speculation for a long time, like probably like over a month or so, that there's going to be another faction coming about. So we'll have to deal with that. I'm sure that's going to be coming up soon now that the automatons are gone. But I think it's cool the fact that people are excited about doing these major orders and how much it can actually change how the game is played. But yeah, September actually linked two articles. One is about like giving the game a rest, because apparently they've been having, because there's so many people who were super excited about getting this major order done, it was causing crashes over the weekend. Because there's like 200,000 people on one planet trying to finish it out. So, I mean, yeah, like I was playing it last night, and it's like I was keeping track of it. It's like, yeah, there was one planet that had like almost 200,000 people on it, and then they finished that one off, and then everyone just bum rushed this last planet, and they actually completed it. I want to be about 6 hours ago, about like
Oh wow.
3-4 o'clock Eastern time today. And granted, we had like 15 hours left on the order, but still, there was a previous major order that we failed, where we weren't, because they didn't clearly specify that there was a certain planet that we needed to control first before we got to the objective planet. They didn't really make that clear, so people were kind of splitting. The forces were split, and we just ran out of time. But then we all rallied and finished this one. So I just think it's kind of cool how Helldivers is doing this, and we will get into. Yeah. Sorry, September just left again. All right, we will get into Helldivers next week. A little bit of a preview there, but yeah, yeah. So I linked the links to those two articles are in our show notes in our chat. So if anyone wants to take a little bit deeper dive, I only got a chance to really skim through them. So if you want to go in a little bit deeper dive, you can follow the links to those articles. All right, Theo, let's go ahead and get into what you're talking about today. Ubisoft, big surprise.
Well, of course, I was gonna say, I'm here and I have to do whatever it is I do, and Ubisoft, that love-hate relationship, mostly hate, a little
Yeah.
love. Kind of like my ex-wife. Like, I love them. I love them for what they could be. But I loathe them for what they are. So,
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, it's a toxic relationship for me. Ubisoft doesn't even know I exist. But having said that, the fine folks at Ubisoft Corporation. So they are looking to put on a show, folks. They are doing their second annual, they call it Forward. This event that they're doing in LA coming up. It's going to be June 10th this year, 2024, obviously in LA.
Yeah.
And so there's been a lot of buzz, not just with this, but what's probably going to be kind of presented or teased, if you will.
Yeah.
And this of course comes with more layoffs in the video industry within Ubisoft as well. I think it was the past week or 2 weeks, it was like 45 people they laid off, more so. Like any company, I get that they have to watch for the bottom line, but there is that kind of, oh, well, you lay all these people off, but hey, check out all our new stuff. Having said that, a lot of the rumor mill is that Ubisoft has been kind of not doing new, as we've talked about before, where it's like they're sticking to the game book, the playbook, if you will. And there's going to be a remake or a redo of some form, not a new chapter of Far Cry.
Okay.
And apparently the same is going for Splinter Cell, where they're going to remake that in some form. So they've got a few coals in the fire. I mean, they made that Skull and Bones.
Yeah.
Sorry, I can't even say the title of that game with the straight face. Why? What happened? Yeah. Let's delay a game forever and then finally bring it out and it still be bad. Like Ubisoft, you're not making a DC video game, okay? Just calm down. You be better.
Yeah.
As Ubisoft as you can be. So they're trying to get people excited about stuff again. And good on them, but I also know that they don't seem to be forging ahead with anything innovative. Yeah. They seem to be sticking to what they know and what they think gamers want. And I've talked about it before. Of course, I'll do it again. But once again, Ubisoft used to be the innovator. They used to be the company that would do the things that nobody else had done up to that point. And in doing so, that's how they made their name.
Yeah.
And now they're turning into the predictable folks, where it's like, yeah, that'll sustain, but it doesn't innovate, and it certainly doesn't set you apart, especially now that you have, a lot of gaming companies that are getting a lot of black eyes. We see stuff behind the scenes, Activision obviously being one of them. Ubisoft's no saint either. And then, of course, all the layoffs that are now coming within the industry. We're kind of at that point where it's like, if you want us to really pour our hearts out, especially to a trusted name like Ubisoft, or was a trusted name, you better swing for the fences and do it well enough to where we want to buy in again. And I don't mean Skull and Bones 2. Just,
jeez,
we'll never talk about that. We'll never ask for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're putting on a show. They're going back to something that's familiar to kind of get people engaged again with the name and what they've got coming out. So of course it is going to be live streamed for those who can't make it there to LA. I will definitely be watching this with a bucket of popcorn.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I think it's just corporate's going to corporate. That's the unfortunate thing. I mean, with there's so many of these companies, gaming now is a massive industry, even more so than movies and television and everything. And of course, anyone who, any kind of investor or anything like that, they're just seeing dollar signs, and that's all they care about. It's like, what can you do to make us money? We don't care if it's good games. We don't care just what microtransaction the hell out of things. Just make us money. That's all they want. And I'm hoping that it's gonna hit I'm hoping that the bubble bursts, and there's like, oh, if we really want to make money, we need to make the customers happy with the actual product. So we need to make actual good games, because especially like there are very few, would be considered AAA titles that I actually care about anymore. Yep. Most of the games that I buy now are independent studios.
Yep.
So it's like with the game that we're talking about, actually all of the games we're talking about this month, although Helldivers is published by PlayStation, but it's developed by Arrowhead, which is an independent company. And it's like they're all indie studios. They're none of these are fully priced AAA titles, and yeah, it's like that's just the case with most of the games I play. It's like I think, there's just very few AAA titles I'm actually excited about. And it's because the games they don't have to adhere to investors. They don't have to adhere to board members or whatever, trying to make the bottom line go up forever, which is an impossibility. And it's corporate's going to corporate, and it just makes
absolutely. Especially when they reach that point, Ubisoft. I mean, they did types of gaming up to when they kind of became what they became and earned their street cred. But they at one point were considered like the smaller fare in the gaming realm. And when you're at that point, you can't count on money. Like creativity as well as ingenuity kind of come into play. And that's where, your imagination can kind of actually expand, within certain, what's the phrase? Within certain restrictions, you can find certain freedoms, and gaming is no different. Where you have to okay, well, we want to do this, but how do we get here with not having, for whatever reason, such and such? And it allows for the mind to expand, and in doing so, both sides win. The company makes a name for themselves, does something that somebody else hasn't done, or does something better than a predecessor, if you will. And then us as the people who are spending, a lot of us do Steam or gaming subscriptions. But I think that's part of it too. Like, who wants to really pluck down $75 for a game and have it yours when it's like, and Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League. I mean, I saw that train wreck coming early on, and I didn't buy it outright, but I was literally in that case of, they're going to do it again, aren't they? They're just going to sit there and they're going to step on their own feet. And sure enough, I played that game for 20 minutes and I was like, you know what? I don't hate my life enough to keep doing this game. Turned it off and went to Doom, and I was much happier with Doom.
Yeah. It's like I keep
remember
on saying,
what Doom was when it started. That little game that was, became such a big deal.
I mean, and
and it was just a game.
Yeah, and that's kind of the story that's just been going around for the last few years. Is you have these like really small indie studios that they make something that just resonates with people, and it just explodes, like Lethal Company. That's like one guy making this game, and it's like he didn't even. I don't even think he expected it to even do anything. It's like, let's come. I'm sure he lovingly crafted it together and everything, but I don't think he was expecting it to be this successful, and it just explodes. And it's like to the point where it's like I'm playing that almost every Monday night with Jess from the Opinionated Lushes podcast. We've been playing Lethal Company on Monday nights, and it's hilarious. It's so fun. He's embraced the modding community, so you can do mods on it and everything. Right. It's just, you get these indie, like, or even like with the launch of Helldivers. Yep. They had server issues for weeks after the launch, not because the servers were, not because of like the product was faulty. It's just they were getting overwhelmed. They did not anticipate that it was going to be this popular. So they had to scramble to like get everything stable in order to support how many people they actually got. They were a victim of success. So, and that's happened so many times the last couple of years. And, granted, you do get a couple AAA titles like Spider-Man. The most recent Spider-Man game was, a big success, but
pretty awesome.
And then like everything else are just indie studios. It's like even Larian, they're an indie studio and they made Game of the Year, Baldur's Gate 3. And, anyway. This could be a subject, like this could be an episode on its own.
Oh, absolutely. And it's funny to dissect like how some of these companies turned into like these behemoths that just shell stuff out and go, hey, you're going to like this, right? And it's like, no, same thing as last time, but worse.
Yeah.
Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League. I'm looking in your direction.
And the thing is, even
remember Warner Brothers used to do the Arkham games. Oh, God, those are still amazing.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing is they could have made the game so much better. It could have had a whole lot more potential, but because of all, corporate going to corporate, they had to, put on all these other mechanics that are just bog down the gameplay and make it repetitive. And, I don't know. Anyway, at some point,
this could be an episode.
Yeah. I mean, at some point it might be kind of interesting to like actually, instead of doing a game, just like do a gaming related subject, something like this. It's like what we think about, indie studios, and we could think about that at some point. But anyways,
I'm there for it.
Yeah. I still have my article to go through, which is just silly, and I thought it was hilarious. I'm always attracted to articles that have a really funny headline to it. And so Stardew Valley recently got another big patch. Apparently, I don't actually play Stardew Valley, so I'm not familiar with like what the patch cycle is for it. But apparently, got a really big patch recently, and it's a big deal. And there's an article on here. Stardew Valley modder challenges players with an everything bagel recipe that requires 134 ingredients. I was just amused by that. So it's literally an everything bagel. But yeah,
for it.
I mean, that's literally like the whole article. It's just, hey, there's a mod where you have to make an everything bagel that has 134 ingredients.
what a marvelous time we live in. Stuff like that. They talk about going to Mars. It's like da. We got it. We're good. We're good.
Yeah.
Because if we go to Mars, we're just going to put like Walmarts there. So we got it. We're good.
Mars Mart.
We're covered.
Oh.
Mars.
Yeah.
Walmart.
Yeah, that works too, probably. Yeah.
Walmart.
But yeah,
I cracked myself up.
I was amused by this headline, partially because also a couple months ago I talked with TV's Travis about the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once, and that's one of the plot elements is the everything bagel is basically it's a black hole that sucks in existence, but it started off as like a literal everything bagel where she put not only sesame seeds, salt, but also her hopes and dreams and, her guilt and everything. So anyways, I was reminded by that too. And I thought it was funny.
As well bagels are.
Yeah. All right. Before we get back to work, I'd like to mention our Patreon, patreon.com/PTGcast. If you like what you're hearing and like to help us out, help pay our paychecks, you can go there and become an intern, employee, board member. Gives you all kinds of perks, including pre-show, post-show content. Adds about an extra half hour of content off the episodes. It's at patreon.com/PTGcast. With that, let's go ahead and get back to work. All right, so our theme for this month is what I'm referring to as the same but different. Just full disclosure, this whole thing was a ploy for me to be able to talk about Helldivers this month because I really want to talk about it. But so
whatever works. Hey, yeah. I'm there.
Yeah. So the whole thing with the same but different is we're going to be talking about a game series where the numbered sequel, is a completely different playstyle, completely different genre. So I was able to pull up a couple different series that have done that, including Helldivers, and we're going to be talking about the differences in how it plays and whether or not that's a good thing or bad thing, just how it's different. So our first game for this month, we're going to be talking about Darkest Dungeon 2. So we have talked about the original Darkest Dungeon, excuse me, with Kyle Ferguson a little less than a year ago. And haven't gotten around to Darkest Dungeon 2 until today. Developed and published by Red Hook Studios. It's currently $39.99 for Windows via Epic and Steam. And it is where Darkest Dungeon is a more closer dungeon crawler, like you're actually going into the dungeons and exploring the dungeons themselves. Darkest Dungeon 2 plays a whole lot different. It plays more like a roguelite. It actually takes some elements from Slay the Spire, with like how the different paths branch off, and you can choose what kind of encounters you want to have, all that kind of stuff. And it definitely plays differently. So if you're a fan of the original Darkest Dungeon, like this is one of the things that was kind of a detriment to Darkest Dungeon 2, is by having that name, having it a 2, people associate it with the same gameplay as the original Darkest Dungeon, which it very much doesn't. So if you're a fan of the original Darkest Dungeon, more than likely you're probably not going to like Darkest Dungeon 2 that much. It plays that differently. And Kyle Ferguson, who his favorite game still is Darkest Dungeon, the original. He has said as much in the past as well. Like shortly after Darkest Dungeon 2 came out, he says like it plays completely differently. He's a fan of the aesthetic, but not so much the gameplay of the second one. He really prefers the first one. Me, on the other hand, I prefer the second one actually.
Agreed.
Yeah. So
yeah, on so many levels. We'll get to that.
But yeah, to get a little bit more in depth into like what a lot of the differences are, with the original Darkest Dungeon, you have this central location, this central hub called the Hamlet. Just as a kind of a reminder for everyone. And you're going off in these few different regions around the Hamlet to explore these dungeons underneath the areas. And but at the end of the day, after the dungeon's over, you come back to the hamlet, and everything is based there. That's where you upgrade your characters. That's where you recruit new characters. That's where you try to reduce their stress. That's where you try to heal them up. Try to everything takes place in this hamlet. And the other major thing is everything is like individual. So you have to recruit an entire barracks full of characters so that you can send them out into the dungeons, and you have to like at least have a couple teams so you can kind of alternate them. It's like, okay, this team is getting really stressed out. They need to stay in the hamlet for a little while. We can send this other team out, all that jazz, to advance through the different dungeons and through the story. Where Darkest Dungeon 2 completely changes that is you don't have a hamlet. You don't have a central location. Your kind of central location is a stagecoach. That's where you're on this stagecoach traveling through these different regions, trying to make it to the next inn, trying to make it through another region, ultimately to reach this mountain that has the whatever boss is for that chapter you're on. So it's kind of a misnomer, but in Darkest Dungeon 2, you're not actually going to dungeons like at all. There's no dungeons. You're traveling through like a burned out city and through the woods and stuff like that to get to the mountain. But the combat itself is pretty much the same. So that has stayed pretty much the same for both. But like every other element is completely different. But yeah, I that being said, the original Darkest Dungeon is very unforgiving. Oh,
that's a good word for it.
Yeah. I mean, and a lot of people are excited about that. They like the challenge of that being so unforgiving. I am not that kind of person. It's like you can go like the biggest thing about like the original Darkest Dungeon is you can get this team, your A team maxed out level, get them all upgraded, get a bunch of good items, and then you get a little bit over your head in one of the dungeons and you're just completely wiped out and you have to start over again. I hate that feeling. It's the same reason why I don't do like seasonal content in basically any like in Diablo or anything like that. I don't do seasonal content because I don't want to have to restart a new character every time. It's like I get attached to the characters I have. It's one of the reasons why I only have like 2 characters in World of Warcraft. And it took me a while to make that second one. So it's like I get attached to my characters. And you can't do that in the original Darkest Dungeon. You can't get attached to them.
Yep.
But it's just that weird mechanic. It's like you can't get attached to them, but you also have to devote a lot of attention. You have to devote a lot of resources into them in order to advance. So in that respect, I really like Darkest Dungeon 2 over the original Darkest Dungeon is because it has those roguelite elements. And you have to look at it more as a run rather, okay, I'm going through this. I pick my 4 characters. We start off in the stagecoach. We're going into these different areas. We, choose which types of encounters we want. We get to the end. We do it again. We do it again. We get to the mountain. Okay, if we die at some point during that, it's like, okay, I can still go back to the beginning with something to spend and try to make, advance the characters, get some more upgrades, pretty typical roguelite elements, which I actually kind of like. Same reason why I like Hades and Slay the Spire. Well, Slay the Spire is pure roguelike. There is a difference. But
yes.
Yeah, roguelike is you start from the beginning and you have nothing. Roguelite is you start at the beginning, but you're able to get like upgrades and stuff like that. Something persists. But it's like I really like those elements. I actually really enjoy the changes because it does make the game more forgiving. Eventually you can like, if you're really good, you can get to the end, beat the boss earlier on. If you're not as good, you can get upgrades, become more powerful, and then get to that point. So, but there's a couple things in specific that I thought was really fun in Darkest Dungeons 2 as opposed to Darkest Dungeon 1. And one is how you unlock abilities. So in the original, you go to a trainer, buy the abilities, and that's that. And again, it's individual. So if you for every character, even if it's the same class, you have to do it for every character. In Darkest Dungeon 2, it's class based. So if you unlock an ability, it's unlocked for that class from then on. Oh, and so you're only getting a party of four characters. You're not building a barracks full of them. Oh, but there's an encounter you can get to called the Shrine of Reflection. And each character, each class has 5 chapters. They actually tell the backstory of these characters and like how they got to the point that they're at. And every single one of them is tragic. It's just like the worst things that can happen to these people.
Right.
And I find it is an interesting point. If you look at the actual art for each of the classes, all of them but one character are turned away from the light. There's a light source coming off from one side, and all but one of them are turned away from it because they regret what they've done. They regret the choices they've made, with the exception of one, which is the leper, who it was completely validated in what he did, however tragic it was. So he's actually the only one facing towards the light. But yeah, to give an example of like the stories behind these characters, I really like the Plague Doctor story. And
yes,
as you advance through these chapters, some of them are just narration, and some of them actually have like gameplay elements to them. But each character has 5 chapters, and that's how you unlock their abilities, is going through their past. Oh, so like with the Plague Doctor, it's like a like Dr. Frankenstein story, which she's ridiculed. She's brilliant in biology and everything, and the knowledge of biology, and theorizes that she could basically reanimate a corpse. That's her whole thing. But she's ridiculed by her classmates. She's ridiculed by her professor and everything like that. And one day she's going by her professor's office, and the professor's dead. There's a bloody handkerchief with laying in front of him. He's slumped over his podium, and she takes the opportunity to take the corpse of her professor to her secret lab and does these experiments in order to resurrect him to some semblance of life. And the way that they describe, like the way they do the narration and everything, it's just ominous.
Yes.
If you're familiar with Darkest Dungeon, they have the same narrator, and he's just that voice doing the narration is just it's just ominous. But she's like the Plague Doctor. This one of the few gameplay ones where the resurrected corpse of her professor is just wailing in pain. And basically, like, I don't think he actually talks, but he's basically saying, "Please kill me." They're like just wailing, and you're trying to heal him. You're trying to do all these things, and then ultimately, it slowly changes the abilities that you have access to from trying to heal him to just killing him, to stop him from wailing, basically. Right. And eventually, you have to kill the corpse. You have to stop the corpse from wailing, and she's like, the reason why she's so broken after that is because that's all she can hear from then on. This is just this corpse wailing and knowing that it was because of her that this happened. And it's like all the stories for like almost all the characters are that. And it's like the Highwayman is haunted by killing a woman and child in a stagecoach, thinking that it was someone else. The Man at Arms is haunted by because of his lack of experience and command. He got his entire group of men killed in battle. The barbarian, I forgot what the class is actually called, but like the barbarian like character is haunted by her like she got into this fight and she just hid behind a tree. She was so cowardly. Oh, and every single story is like this. And I think that's actually a really cool element, not just for the gameplay. It's like, okay, this is how you unlock your abilities, but just learning about like the lore of these characters, which that's something that they didn't have in the original Darkest Dungeon.
Right.
I think that they had them in a comic book, like companion comic book series or something.
It was a side deal. I think it was
Yeah,
something like a comic book or like a graphic novel where it kind of broke that stuff down. I vaguely remember that.
yeah. So I do like those lore elements and just seeing how what has happened to these characters that's made them so broken. I thought that was a really cool element to it. But another really important element to how you play the game is the characters have relationships. They have a relationship score, and it really is something you need to keep in mind. Because they can be either a really powerful boost to your characters, or it can be a really powerful detriment to your characters. So as you're going through these different encounters, you have choices to make. And depending on what choices you make, it can affect the relationship of your characters with each other. And if two characters start having a positive relationship, they like I've had ones where they've fallen in love, where they've become comrades and arms and stuff like that. And those ones, it's like if one character uses a certain ability, the other one can occasionally do some kind of buff, like they'll either heal or they'll attack the same character or the same enemy as the other one. So it's really helpful because it's just a free action. Oh, but I've also had times when two of my characters become envious or just like kind of murderous toward each other, honestly. And where it's like one of them gets attacked and all of a sudden the other one comes behind him and backstabs him and deals more damage to him because he just wants that character dead. And it's like, this is another factor for like what choices you make throughout the different encounters. And there's the encounters that you can go through really make a big difference. They can encounter healers. You can encounter the hoarder, which can give you items. You also have to keep track of the wheels and the armor on your stagecoach, because if one of them gets hit too many times, it'll force you to stop and have to go through another encounter while you fix it. So there's a lot of elements like that to it. So ultimately, if you really like the gameplay of Slay the Spire, if you really like those roguelike elements, but you like the combat system of Darkest Dungeon, you'll probably like Darkest Dungeon 2. Like we said, if you're really into the unforgiving nature of the original Darkest Dungeon, you're probably going to end up skipping Darkest Dungeon 2. But I do think it's very interesting how they segued from the dungeon crawler gameplay of the original to the roguelite gameplay of Darkest Dungeon 2. I thought that was actually really kind of cool. And how it is still somewhat cohesive because it is the same characters, it is the same combat style, but it's a different way of traversal, advancement. A lot of those other elements are different. Yeah. And also the art style is very interesting. Like in the original, it was all 2D sprite, like really, it has a very distinct art style. And in the original, it was 2D, just flat images. They did move to 3D characters in Darkest Dungeon 2, but still really maintained that same look. Like if you don't move the characters, they still look like their 2D counterparts until they move around a little bit and you realize they're 3D, but they still have those thick black outlines, those kinds of shapes, and it really does. It does have a distinct art style, and I think they kept it very well, even while transitioning to 3D. But yeah, and the party, like September put a couple notes down here, like the party composition is very important.
Yes.
In like we mentioned in Darkest, the original, you have a barracks full of different characters you can choose from. So you can put in multiple different parties from these, Legos of characters. Whereas in Darkest Dungeon 2, you have 4 characters. That's it. You choose from the start those 4 characters, and you don't get to choose different ones unless one of them dies. And even then, you have to wait until you get to an inn between the different regions to do that. So it's a very, very, very. I mean, the theme for this month is the same but different. It's very different gameplay style, even though it's set in the same world. So again, take whichever one you like. They're both part of the same series. I like we said, I personally like Darkest Dungeon 2 because of the roguelite elements. I remember Slay the Spire is still among one of my favorite games of all time. So having this in the same kind of feel, kind of gameplay style, but having that Darkest Dungeon art style and that lore and world behind it, I think is a really good combination. So yeah.
This one, so it's the dungeon so not nice. They darkened it twice.
Yeah.
And it's very much, this was one of those, so I had to go back to the first one because it was one of those things where I'm like, I'm seeing this right? Where and there is so much cohesion in many elements between the first and the second, but it's almost like a typical Hollywood blockbuster sequel movie where you took what you started and a lot of it you really amplified and tried to kind of raise the bar. And there's a lot of it. Well, one thing visually, it's fantastic. Like I love the visuals in this one. The gameplay is absolutely off the chain. I like the more 3D elements.
Yeah.
Visually, just absolutely arresting. And there is a lot of, not necessarily, I hate to use the term gloomier elements, but there's not a lot of like positivity to come from this. Don't play this and think it's Mario Kart, like far from it. This is kind of like if you took Game of Thrones and put a lot of those elements, with except for the nudity and the terrible last season. But having said that, I gotta agree with you because I actually went back to the first one to kind of go forward so I could kind of get refreshed. And it was like, it was literally the equivalent of like watching like, VHS to like, 4K HD.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of elements that are definitely changed to the point where those who are kind of, I guess you could say, purists of the first one would be kind of repelled to this one where it's like, they were able to do more in so many respects, but did they really need to? And I know there's many sequel games where, they took one thing and then when they amped it up, it was like almost not even the same thing anymore, where they had changed so many aspects. One thing I do love, and you hit on it as well, is the narrator.
Yeah.
I love the kind of the gravitas, but the ominous, the kind of doom and gloom. And it's one of those voices where like they can read anything and it would literally still carry that same impact. Like if they were reading, reading like the ingredients to Rice Krispies. Ingredients: enriched white flour. No,
Could you imagine him reading? Could you imagine that narrator reading like Cat the Hat and making it sound like the most intense like horror novel in existence?
I could not, would not on a train. I do not like green eggs and ham. I do not like them. Death I am. Like I love voices like that where they're kind of like too serious for their own good. Like some will really be taken in like that and then some will laugh. But it's almost like some of those movies, even the ones that kind of make fun of that stuff, like I, Nicodemus, stuff like that pulls me in. And that was one of the things that they kept that really kind of carries over to where it's like, okay, this is along that. And you made a fair point where it's like you kind of want to call up the company and go, so I was told there was going to be dungeons.
Yes. Are there any
In
dungeons
the
in your dungeon
darkest
game?
dungeons.
Yeah.
This is kind of like the grape nut cereal.
Yeah.
There's no grape, there's no nuts.
It's just road gravel.
How did you get the name? Yeah, it's like kitty litter, but yeah, go put milk on it. It's like, no, even the cats won't go with grape nuts. That's the yeah. I feel like that stuff was made on like a bet. But so much of this game I really enjoyed. The cereal, not the game, is on a bet. No, there's so much of this that I enjoyed, and I too, I'm very much the more roguelike play, and there's so much of it. One thing that I really love too is like the gameplay is like just super smooth. Like there's a lot of things you kind of do in traverse, and when you expand something, and I've seen it with games and other things where it's like, okay, we're going to try something different, but we're not going to sure how to kind of do it, render it, what have you. There's so much of this they pulled off that is such like not even a step up, more like 3 steps up from the first one. And I really enjoyed, once again, the graphics are stunning. I love that type of visuals, artwork, what have you. And so much of it done so well. It does feel a little night and day between 1 and 2. I gotta say, I'm with you. I like 2 a little better.
Yeah, I mean, it's partially also because I'm just really bad at the first one, and I can actually advance in the second one. But yeah, again, I like the roguelike
there you
elements.
Go.
So
it's like the equivalent. It's like the difference between regular golf and Wii golf. It's like, well, I suck at regular golf, and I don't want to wear purple plaid pants in broad daylight. However, Wii golf.
Yeah.
I'm Tiger Woods, baby. I can wear whatever I want, even the ugly plaid purple pants.
Yeah. And also just for the part-time gamer aspect of it, because it is a roguelite rather than the long drawn out campaign of the original. You can go through a run in like maybe half an hour, probably even less. It's not super long for the runs. You can go through one, call a day, all that stuff. So it is broken up much more, I think, than the original Darkest Dungeon, where you can feel like you've accomplished something. So there's definitely that element. What I think the roguelike element to that really leads to that. But yeah, overall, I'm still a fan of the original, even however bad I'm however bad I am at it. Words, good mouth out of.
Speak, say stuff.
But yeah, I really like again, once I go back to it, the series, I'll probably go back to number 2.
Yeah.
That's me.
They're both solid, but 2 is, I mean,
it's
as
more
long
accessible.
as they keep the voice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Could you imagine if they had that voice in like if somebody wanted to like put that in like the old Super Mario Brothers NES?
Oh man.
Mario, the Italian-American plumber, faces King Koopa. Just, I don't think the game would be fun anymore. I think people would be terrified. They'd be like, nope.
Yeah, pretty much.
We're watching the Wiggles. That's too much.
All right. So I think we pretty much covered everything here. So everyone, if you like what you've heard, like to help us out, you can give us a review over on Apple Podcast. You can follow my Twitch and or the YouTube channels for our live recordings Sunday nights starting at 9:15 Eastern time. Or if you'd like to help with our paychecks, you can go to patreon.com/ptgcast to do that and become one of our patrons. And we'd like to thank our board member, Stephanie Hurst. Thank you very much for supporting us, helping us out with our paychecks each month. If you'd like to contact...
Thank you, Stephanie.
If you'd like to contact us, you can with our email, parttimegamers.cast@gmail.com, or you can join our Discord channel. There's a link to our Discord in our show notes and on my website. Everyone, thank you for listening. Please join us for our discussion next week of the Helldivers series 1 and 2. I'm really excited about this. Again, this is the entire reason why I wanted to do this subject, is to talk about Helldivers 2 and how much I enjoy it. And specifically the reason why I wanted to do it next week. So today is what is today? Today is the 7th. Next week, April 14th, Actually, April 15th marks two kind of big anniversaries. One, it'd be officially 2 years since we restarted the Part Time Gamers podcast. So I'm super excited about that. It is also going to be the 18th anniversary of my 21st birthday. So super excited about
Yay!
that. I'm taking
We'll
Monday
have
off.
cake.
Yeah. I'm taking Monday the 15th off from work so that I can stay up late on the 14th. And after we get done streaming the podcast, I'm probably going to stay up and just play Helldivers throughout the night for probably, like however many hours later. Because I've already set up with my family, just like, hey, for my birthday, am I a terrible person? The fact that for my birthday, I just want to be left alone.
No, not at all.
It's-
I've actually spent a lot of birthdays like that intentionally,
yeah.
just for people to, and it's not so much like you don't want to spend time with them on that day, but
I just need rest.
I don't know if it necessarily comes with age, but you know what you like and you know what you want to do.
Yeah.
And one of my birthdays a couple years ago, I literally sat and watched James Bond movies and built Legos.
That sounds like a great day to me.
Exactly, and it was awesome. And
Yeah.
my girlfriend sat with me to watch James Bond movies,
Yeah.
which I will tell you firsthand is a feat unto itself, because there has been so many times where I've watched them, the new, the older, just as the whole gambit, and they've just never sparked an interest with her. And I finally got her to go to one in the theaters. And it was the first one she was going to watch all the way through. So this was literally the moment for me where I was like, okay, she's gonna watch this and drink it in and get to kind of know me. And it was the one, the most recent one with Daniel Craig.
Yeah.
And boy, I didn't know how crappy that one was going to be. And it was like, here's your introduction. And then 3 hours later, I'm like, I'm sorry. I didn't know. I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know they were going to make a $300 piece. So, yeah, that one was rough as a Bond fan. So,
but yeah, that's going to be my, I'm going to stay up late, sleep in, probably play video games a lot on that day. Apparently my daughter does have a recital that I'm going to go watch as well. And, yeah, I'm going to just try relax. I'll probably play Helldivers long to the night after we finish up the show next week. So it's going to be fun. But,
there you go.
Yeah. Anyways, I'm Sean. You can find this show and the rest of my work and links to my socials, including our Discord channel, my Twitch and YouTube channels, and the Apple Podcast listing using the link bit.ly/CI Productions. You can find Ember's work over at 9of12.com, NINEOF12.com. Dear, where can people find you around the internet?
No. They
Keep
can
it
find
clean.
me on swell.com. On there, it's that one weirdo. And then Rabbit in Red will be getting off the ground again on the 18th. There's been just, like many things, I mean, as much as we love doing this show as well as other shows, kind of life gets in the way of certain things. And my co-host has gone through some stuff. So helping him through that and trying to get back to where we're in a good place to do it. So it looks like the 18th, which is great because I've already got like a couple of horror movies that I watched for us to kind of talk about and review. So yeah, Rabbit in Red should be back on the 18th, but more to follow on that.
Okay. All right, everyone. Until next time, we are the Part-Time Gamers, clocking out.